Hello, welcome to episode 12 of Unsung Heroes of the Cloud. Today we're here with DevOps wizard April Edwards, and she's going to tell us about static web apps, which everyone loves, but she's going to show us some special magic that's baked in with GitHub Actions. So looking forward to this demo, April. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Nils. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. So before we jump into tech, we always like to just have a quick little chit chat with our guests. So what do you like to do for, well, fun?
For fun, I'm an avid triathlete. So I compete pretty regularly in triathlons, specifically more kind of the long or middle distance, what they call Ironman or half Ironman triathlon. Sometimes some shorter ones, but usually the longer stuff.
Okay. And where are you right now in your training cycle?
I'm actually at the end of my season because of COVID issues and travel and quarantine requirements. I was supposed to actually be flying out to Italy this week, next week to race the half Ironman in Venice. And that's failed. Also, my race in Spain has also failed because of similar requirements. So unfortunately, I've just called it a day on the season.
Okay. Yeah.
Here's a really stupid question.
Yep.
For the Ironman in Venice, do you get to swim in the canals?
You actually swim in an ocean. So
okay.
when the brand Ironman advertises an event, they give you a city name, but you tend to spawn several cities or a city outside. So for instance, Venice is actually in an area called, I think it's Gisolo. It's just outside Venice. So you're actually doing a beautiful ocean swim.
Nice.
Yes. But the one thing I can tell you is I'm a runner myself. And I hadn't run any races in 2 years. And then this summer, races came back online and I've been able to run 4. And it's been just fantastic to be competitive again. Although I'm not a podium athlete, but it's just nice to be with people and just chat on the course.
Absolutely. And for here in the UK as well, races have come back. So a lot of people are racing locally, which is great. But there also means there's a lot of competition that normally be racing abroad or somewhere else. So I did what they call a European qualifier. And because there's less races as well, the field was completely stacked. Like there was 13 people in my age group. And where I'd normally place in like the top 5, I got 8th. And that's still really good. But it was a really, really hard day because everyone's fighting for limited spots now. So, but it's great to be racing. It's great to be back and just, doing events again. So.
Yeah, because I think you had an event yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a live in-person talk at WinOps London. And that was actually very similar to what we're going to be talking about today. There were probably about 30 people in the room, but then it was also live streamed. So events are going a bit hybrid. So they're being inclusive of people that, there's still people that don't want to travel, aren't comfortable. Distance is still an issue. And yeah, I mean, I have other events I'd love to go to, but I have to do them remotely, which is unfortunate, but I miss the travel.
Yes. I can hear you.
We all can. Sorry for joining late.
Hey, Mike.
Hi. It's more fun with you here, Mike.
Sorry?
It's more fun with you here.
Yeah, sometimes. But I saw the pictures. It actually looks very nice, the event from yesterday. So I was actually very jealous that you were able to go back on the stage and like interact with people. And
that's the
actually
biggest
have some
difference.
feedback.
Yeah, actually speaking to people. Like I can ask a question, you can see people's faces, they return an answer, and you could have Q&A that was a lot more contributory than, and I was also on a panel as well. So I sat on the panel. I think the panel was about 45, 50 minutes long, and there are about 6 of us on the panel, and we could have full interaction, full comments back and forth, and people enjoyed it, and they could watch and listen. And I think a lot of people gave the feedback as well that it's weird to interact with people again. Like we're learning as humans again how to interact, what's normal. People you go into, are people shaking hands? Are they not shaking hands? So it's still a bit of a learning curve, but I think it's great when we're all just kind of just being out there and be able to ask questions again. People are so much more open and personable and eager to learn.
Yeah, and the hallway track.
Oh, yeah.
But talking about learning, April, you came on with a purpose because you've got something to show us.
I do. I always have something to show, and it's usually related around DevOps. So we're going to talk about static web apps today. And the reason why we're going to talk about static web apps is these went GA back in, I should know the date, but it was back in May. So when people were looking to move websites to Azure, which is such a common requirement from a customer in an organization, they usually have a website hosted on servers or a server, and they go, what are options to move our website? So they often talk about a virtual machine, or maybe they run a virtual machine scale set. I don't like doing things the normal way. I like going as platform as a service over a virtual machine. And there's many reasons why. You have a lower footprint to manage and maintain. As an ops person, there's less for you to do. So you can go be proactive with other things. You're buying a managed service. Now in Azure, we have options outside of virtual machines for our websites. We have Azure Web Apps, which come with a lot of baked-in features, but that might have been overkill for a lot of people. The other option that I've actually demoed it in the past is you could stand up a static website off of an Azure blob storage. Pretty easy to do, pretty quick to do. It integrates into VS Code, so your developers could have quick access, and they're easy to manage, but you had to bolt on things to get that going.
And we actually showed that in a previous episode. I think it was a couple of episodes ago, 7, 8, or 9, where Mike actually demoed static web apps on storage.
Yeah, and it was such a hidden feature. I would show people this, and they're like, "Huh, didn't know that." And because it was a redundant bit of storage, it could solve some issues for a lot of organizations at a very cost-effective way. But it needed more things. People want to be able to hook an API in, run an Azure function off the back of it, hook it into their CDN, change their DNS name. There's so many things people need to do, but quite a simple website, right? So when they came out with static web apps, they also wanted to make sure that static web apps had features built in, because when we go into Azure and we build something, we have to export an ARM template. I hate ARM templates. So I'm a big fan of Terraform. And I also really am enjoying working with Bicep. So if we create something in Azure, we have to go and create it, export a template, and then start our CI/CD process. And we have to try to automate things. And that can take time. And we have to think of where to start. And then we have to start bolting on our DevOps process. So static web apps, we're going to go through building one in a second, have CI/CD built into them, capabilities built into them that a lot of other products don't, if that makes sense, out of the box. All right, so you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So on my screen here, we have an Azure Static Web App. I've just started to build it. When we go to build our static web app, we declare things like our subscription, resource group, our name. So this is my Unsung hero, very appropriately named.
Love the name.
See, it fits. So when we look at spinning up a static web app, and this is a great resource that people can go play with because it's free. The standard has a lot more features baked into it. You can click on this here and compare your plans. But again, you want to get started, have a play with it, test out your website on it. Here's a free option. So when you start the static web app, until you start bolting things on, there's no cost. So when I go to deploy this, I have the option down here for deployment details. If I hit other, I'll use this for Azure DevOps. Or if you're using something like Bitbucket, GitLab, another tool, another third-party tool that you want to integrate into Azure, you can do the other option here. But we're going to integrate into GitHub. But I'm also going to show how this integrates into Azure DevOps, because we have people out there that are using both. And when they built this, they want to cater to both services, which is fair. So if I click the other box here, I just hit review and create. It's going to create our static web app. I've already pre-populated one because it doesn't take very long. But just in case I break the internet, which has been known to happen.
Because of you or just in general?
I like breaking things. I do DevOps. So I like doing my demos live, and I like breaking them so we can DevOps our way out of them, right? And make it better.
Exactly.
So this is just a vanilla JavaScript app. You can get access to this repo on GitHub, and it's fine. So this is effectively deployed into Azure DevOps. You can see the source here on the right-hand side. It says main Azure DevOps. And if I click into it, it's the repository where my code sits. And we can see that I've already called that in the access. So I can see my files here. I've created a YAML file. I've pre-populated that. But this is where my code sits. I'm actually going to go into my pipeline real quickly over here. I've pre-populated this again because when I write YAML, I have a spacing issue unless I'm doing it in VS Code. So when you want to create this pipeline, there's a couple caveats to doing this in Azure DevOps. So when you create that Azure Static Web App in the portal, you need to take your management token and import it as a variable into your pipeline. This is currently a manual process. It's copy and paste. And to create the task here, you click on deploy Azure Static Web App. You put the location of your API, your build, etc., and you pop it into your pipeline. Now I've pre-populated my pipeline. So when I export this task, we can see it here. And on line 36 here, we have this token. That's our deployment token that we need to have. And in my pipeline, it's stored as a variable. So if I click on my variables here, you'll see it's hidden in here. Again, manual process, not ideal, but I've put in a PowerShell script here that automates this, meaning if that management token changes at any point in time in my portal, it will update it through that PowerShell script. Now, the reason being is once we deploy something, it's good security practice to change our tokens around. So I've automated something that isn't automated out of the box. Now that feature is coming. It's not there yet, but we have the ability to get a pipeline going and deploy to our Azure Static Web App. So we could make changes to this and we're done. Okay. That's cool. All right, but let's go a step further. We're going to deploy this to GitHub. When I do that, I have the option here to choose which organization in GitHub, which repository, and which branch I'm working off of. So if I have multiple branches, we can see that I do. I've done this demo quite a bit. I can go to my main branch here or master, whatever your preferred branch is, or whatever branching name you want to have in your organization, maybe developer branch. And then we click review and create. When we hit review and create, it goes to my GitHub account. It authenticates through, creates a secure handshake, and it's going to pop us out a URL and create the resource for us. So it does a cool few things in it. So we can notice when we went to the Azure DevOps one, it gave us the source. We have a different source in the GitHub one. So it populates that. This goes straight to our repository. The other thing that happens is we can go to the deployment history. So there's a link here and we can see the workflow. So the really, really cool thing of Azure Static Web Apps is when we go to do this in GitHub, it creates a workflow for us. So if I click on this, it takes us directly to the workflow. Now, what's really important about DevOps, and when you start talking about CI/CD with organizations, we need a place to start. We tell people shift left, do things early and often, but we need to know where to start. And that's okay, but if we don't have a lot of experience as an organization or we don't have templates, we need somewhere to start, and this gives us a baseline. So this tells us on any push of our code to main, any pull request to our main branch here, it's going to run this workflow. And this workflow is going to go through, it's going to check out our code. It's going to build and deploy our code here, line 21. And we can see it automatically pulls over our token as a secret for right here in line 25. So I don't have to copy paste. That authentication between the Azure portal and GitHub does that for me. So this is all automated.
So just as a quick question, for my own confirmation, what you showed earlier in Azure DevOps, there was a pipeline you had to create and edit yourself. Whereas when you create a static web app using GitHub, all of this gets pre-populated and basically you get CI/CD out of the box without editing a single line of code.
Correct. So
Nice.
that has all been automated for us. So when we say to people, we will automate all the things, at Microsoft, we want to bake that into the product to prove that point. So I'm going to go into our repository. I'm going to make some changes to our code, and I want to show you guys what it actually does. So again, I can do this from VS Code or whatever my preferred IDE is. I'm going to go ahead and do it from here. I'm going to go ahead and steal some code. So before I'm going to steal my own code. So before I make some changes, let's look at what our website looks like.
Yeah.
It says, welcome. We've made an Azure Static Web App. We've deployed it by GitHub Actions. Now we can do all sorts of cool things to our website. And what's the use case for changing our website? Maybe we have someone from the marketing department, someone in the business wants to change our website, or maybe someone finds a typo. I can usually look at the top here where I've not put a space in, I've not coded that in correctly, or they want to make a whole other change to our website. So if I go back to our index file here, I'm going to go ahead and just change our code. I'm going to put in some new code. Doesn't matter what it is at this point. It's not going to do anything great. So we're going to create a change. Instead of committing that change to the main branch, I'm going to be a good developer and create a new branch. And I'm going to call this, let's call it my Unsung branch. and I'm going to propose the changes. So when I create this pull request, it's going to open the branch. Good development practices here. So these are things you can put rules into your organization of how these work. But this is out of the box. I haven't made any changes to the rule strategy. So I showed you guys the workflow file, and we can see that it's going to run some checks on my code. So if I click on details here, we can see that it's setting up our build and deploy job for our code. So it's setting up the job. It's building our Azure Static Web App. It's running our actions, and it's going to go ahead and deploy it for us. Now, remember, this is out of the box. So with this workflow, I can go in and edit it, add other things in. I can add in testing, but it gives us that CI/CD capability straight out of the box. And so
when it goes to build and deploy, does it immediately deploy into the live website, or does it use like a deployment slot in the background?
Well. That's where the fun comes in. So this is going to run. Let's go back to our pull request and see what it actually looks like. So we're going to watch the pull request run because something magical is going to come up. Now, whenever I open up a pull request, what's the point of what, in your opinion, guys, what's the point of creating a pull request?
Review.
Yeah, code review.
Yeah,
not only code review, issues review, periods, because it's security and everything. So
we want to make sure that whatever changes we've made to our code is viable, right? We want to make sure if we have a lot of developers working on a project, we don't just push code to our production environment. So opening up this pull request ensures that our code is reviewed. So we can see that if you guys saw the GitHub Actions bot here, it created a staging site. So if you've ever worked with Azure Web Apps, you have the option of a deployment slot. The deployment slot allows you to have a different version of your production workload, your production website in a non-production slot. It still uses the same resources as your production slot. So if you do hammer that website, you're going to kill your production environment, but it's an exact replica. So if I click on this here, the GitHub bot creates our new website. Now, this website is very, very different from our old website. Now, I could have been a bad developer, written some really bad code, and that happens. I could have made another mistake. The web address at the top has a #11 at the top. That's how we can differentiate that's our pull request number that tags the pull request we've opened. So if we go back to our pull request here, let's go back to our pull requests, see where we look at that. It's pull request number 11. So it gives that end-to-end traceability. It gives us that protection against production for us to review the environment. So instead of having to go and create a deployment slot like we do in Azure with Azure Web Apps, it creates one for us. So we can see that, okay, the changes are as we wanted it. We can merge that PR. So we've protected production. We've created checks in our environment. It's also passed all the checks. We can add some testing in here. Now this staging site is only applicable while the PR is open. So a lot of times when we're looking at testing and testing environments, cost is a concern to our organizations, right? We spun up a whole new VM, we spun up all these things, and we've left them running and inherited a lot of cost. We don't want to do that. Now, the good news is we're using the free tier of the Static Web App. If we go to the standard tier, there is a cost associated, but you have more staging sites available to use for you, right? So you kind of pay for what you get more features. But this just comes with a basic free Static Web App. So as soon as I merge this pull request, I'll change my production site. It will merge my code and it will deploy it out. This staging slot will go away. So this is a feature that's baked in specifically into Azure Static Web Apps as it hooks into GitHub. So there you guys go. That is an Azure Static Web App with full CI/CD capability baked in, stands us up a staging site. We open up our PR and we can run some tests on our code and we're good to go.
This looks
all out of the box.
Sweet. And if I compare it to the static web apps in Azure Storage, which are great for hosting stuff, this does come with a couple of added features, like the pre-deployment website is just fantastic. That before you merge it, you can actually see what your changes are like.
Absolutely. You can actually see what the website is, how it's viewed. You can run tests against it. And it's fully baked in. And for organizations that are like, we are a high performing DevOps organization, this is perfect. And for other organizations that are like, we need to start somewhere, this is another great starting point. And for everyone out there watching, you can go and get this Azure Static Web App spun up, and it's free using the free tier. And you can do a lot with it. There's a lot of capability baked into the product. You can hook in an Azure function. You can if you bring your own function, that does require the standard tier, but hook in APIs, etc. So there's a lot of capability that goes that kind of step above and beyond the static site coming out of blob storage.
What I do like is that you already get everything pre-populated, and you can just change it as your own needs, because that's the beauty of GitHub Actions. It's just a YAML file that you just edit, and you can add additional features, additional branch policies if you want to. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, that is really, really nice. But I didn't know about the staging part, that it did it automatically. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah. So if you think of your developer and you're thinking code first, there's already some safe practices built out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the operations security side, again, these are baked out of the box. And as an operational team, you're not having to worry about what your developers are doing. There's something straight out of the box, and it makes everyone happy. And that's how we can align the practices of our dev team and our ops team together to make sure we're all delivering what we need to be delivering as high value to our organizations and our end users.
Yeah, that's pretty neat indeed. That's indeed the goal of DevOps: deliver value to the masses. Period.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool. Now, thank you for this insight. Really useful. I think our viewers will appreciate this little session. Yeah. Anything else you want to show us, or are we rounding up?
That's it. I'm not going to change my website because I don't like the changes I've actually made. So I can abandon my pull request. But I think, next time, I think I'll actually break something beforehand, and then we can fix it together. But yeah, I think it's a great product. And I get asked all the time where customers can start with DevOps, and I would say pick a project that is viable, and greenfield is nice, but the reality is we all have legacy applications. So how can we take some of those applications as low-hanging fruit and have some success when we're looking at moving to the cloud?
Indeed. Well, thank you for that insight, April.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was great to be here.
Yes, and
always
maybe just as we're closing out, I also want to say another thank you to you. We called you out last week, but I want to say it to you in person as well. Thanks for the t-shirt project you did in honor of Abel. Mike and I, totally unscripted, were both wearing our t-shirt last week. And I think it's just a great initiative to, do it in honor of him, but also support girls who code. And that's, thank you for organizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Abel had a passion in teaching coding to youth, and he supported girls who code. And it's the least we could do to show our support, right? Raise money for a great cause. Abel was always full of great words and great ideas. And he's right. Don't accept the defaults, and, keep on coding.
Yes,
indeed.
Thank you for coming on. And you already mentioned the next time, so we are looking forward to having you on again.
All right. Thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Okay. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
You too.
See y'all.